All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be reviewing or previewing the MMA slate after a week off of MMA. We get a pretty full card of about 15 fights, at least that's at the time of this recording. And I'm doing this a little bit early, in part to distract myself from fasting, which I have to do right now for Yom Kippur. But I really feel as though this slate has a good combination of high equity plays, some good inside the distance prop type plays. And there's one play which I'm sort of thinking is a fade that I think a lot of people might be playing. When I first looked at this slate, I thought it was going to be extremely difficult. And the more I look at it, the more I think it is somewhat manageable. So I wanna go through the slate in this way. I have the best fight odds here, and I also have the DraftKings app open. And I want to highlight, first of all, just a couple of plays which I consider really high equity plays. So one of them is, well, unfortunately, due to a fight, a replacement fighter coming in, and that is the fight between Nicholas Mota and the replacement fighter, Cameron Van Camp. Again, because DraftKings puts the salaries out early, they can't really change someone's salary if their opponent gets booted out. So Mota was priced as if he were going to be well, not significant underdog, but at least an underdog. As you'll see, he was priced at 7,900, which implies about, just a little less than a pick'em, maybe like $1.20 or so underdog. But as you'll see, due to the rescheduling of fight, he's like a 3-1 favorite. So this is basically a mathematical lock. That doesn't mean he's just going to win, but mathematically he's just priced way too low, and he's just a theoretical lock. Now, does that mean that if he's 100% owned that you have to play him? No, there's certainly leverage considerations, but for a number of reasons, I don't feel as though these plays are owned as much as they should be. And I think that this particular play is extremely strong, and I would probably recommend using them in almost all lineups. The issue I was running into when I first came up with that is when I started to hand build lineups, when you go that route, you take that guy at 7,900, it makes it a little more difficult to get some of the 9K guys that you might want to get to. So I struggled with that. And it is a decision that you're going to have to make, because you'll see that when you scramble either an optimizer or build lineups, if you do play Mota, you'll see that you're not going to be able to get, for example, like 3 9K guys. And there are a bunch of 9K guys that you probably want to consider. But what's kind of really sealing this for me is that not only is Mota a strong equity play, but also it's a very, very fair inside the distance prop. Usually, when it's over under 2.5 rounds, about pick'em, I consider that above average. And here it's exactly that. It's an above average inside the distance prop, and that equity that I mentioned earlier, I think it makes Mota like kind of an elite play. The only reason to not play it again is if it makes your lineups a little bit screwy or for leverage. But I do think that Mota is going to be kind of under-owned given his win equity and given his finishing equity as well. The other kind of really cool equity play, which is not going to be talked about quite as much, I think, is Carlston Harris. So he's fighting Impa Kasanganay. Impa Kasanganay was kind of in the public eye for, he was beating, well, not beating, he was in a good fight with Joaquin Buckley, who we'll get to later. Joaquin Buckley did the spinning kick that was basically the knockout of the year. So he was on TV quite a bit, or on the streams quite a bit, and he's really good. But He is about a little bit better than a pick'em over Carlston Harris. You'll see that Carlston Harris is priced as if he was almost a 2-to-1 underdog. It's an 8,900 to 7,300 spread here. So just on pure win equity, Harris makes a lot of sense. But in addition to that, because of the styles of these two fighters, Harris is kind of someone who goes for takedowns time and time again. And as we've discussed, forever since the new DraftKings scoring, wrestlers and grapplers, with that takedown upside have a significant edge over strikers. So Harris, the combination of that win equity plus his style equity, I think he makes for an additional, very, very strong play. I think that if you start your lineups with these two guys, you're gonna really have an edge over the field. Now again, Harris is certainly no lock, Moda is certainly no lock, but I think these are two very, very strong plays you should consider. Again, depending on how many lineups you play, how much of them you'll get. I would probably, in a single lineup, make sure to get both. And as you'll see, as I mentioned, there are 9K guys that you really want to consider here. Now, after that, it looks like a really, really huge card. However, in the end, it really is not that big of a card when you think about all the different options. So, like, for example, what you're looking for are either good win equity situations like we already talked about, and also really good finishing upside, or someone who's a really, really strong wrestler that can get like a zillion takedowns. Okay. So like this first fight, Whitmire Goldie is just really just not playable. It's got a terrible inside the distance prop. Neither of them are a particularly great wrestler, and there's no win equity. There's no implied win equity either. Alatang Lopez, just a putrid inside the distance prop. What I would say is that Alatang might have some wrestling upside, so maybe you could use Alatang in some lineups, but certainly nothing to key off of. One thing I will say also, by the way, as we go through these style discussions, is that one thing you can do if you had access to FanDuel and you want to play FanDuel, UFC as well, FanDuel actually rewards the stuffing of takedowns really, really significantly. So while on DraftKings, you want to target the style matchup that favors the wrestler, you on FanDuel typically want to take the opponent of the wrestler, because their win upside is going to be dictated by how many takedowns they can resist. So, like, for example, I would play Alatang on DraftKings, but probably Lopez on FanDuel if I had no opinion, which I don't. Harrison Kianzad, we already talked about. Aside from that fight does not have a good inside the distance prop, so it's not as if Kianzad is particularly in play. It's not the worst, but see, the fight doesn't go to decision. It's a little bit of a favorite to not go to decision. Over 2.5, you're minus 180. So it's definitely not above average. Alpar Blanchfield. This is 9K fighter, but very poor inside the distance prop, so this fight is pretty much unplayable. Then you get to the first of the really, really tough 9K guys to fade, and we're can't play them all. And I'm going to show you who I think I'm going to fade soon. But so Montel Jackson is like a 6-to-1 favorite. The inside the distance prop is basically 1.5 rounds. So probably 50% of the time he's going to finish in the first round, and 50% of the time probably going to finish in the second round. Now, I will say that if he finishes in the second round at a price tag of, I want to get this exactly right, sorry about that, at a price tag of 9,500, I don't think that's going to work. So, and also if he finishes in the first round not 100% guaranteed that wins either. So yes, I mean, there's a great degree of safety in this, in that he's going to win. That's probably going to be the first or second round. But if it goes to the second round, probably doesn't make optimal, or there's a good chance he doesn't make optimal. And even if he knocks him out in the first round, might not make optimal. So am I going to fade this? I mean, not 100%, but it's not like something I have to play. Like if I can build like a really cool upside lineup without Montel Jackson, I'll do it. And just root for it to go to the second round, and that could be enough. Could be enough of an anti-sweat to make Montel Jackson fade work. Rong Zhu against Dakota Bush, just nothing to say there. This isn't on the card. Raquel Pennington against Pennington Kianzad. Again, you'll look at this. Terrible inside the distance prop. Not a particularly great style fight between wrestler and striker. So that's kind of a pass. So Gravely Maness is an interesting one because I just brought this point up. Gravely is probably going to be the one going for the takedowns. So if you do want to play this, you could consider playing Gravely on DraftKings and Maness maybe on FanDuel. The equity is pretty fair. It's 9,100, 7,100. It's a 2-to-1 favorite. The inside the distance prop is not great because that's not, Gravely main path to victory is not just by knocking Maness out. It's going to be getting takedowns, controlling, and things like that. So Gravely does have some takedown upside and wrestling upside, which overcomes some of that finishing, that lack of finishing upside. So I would kind of rate Gravely very similar to, pretty similar to Jackson, right? Because based on the price, Gravely is only 9,100. So he doesn't need quite as much to get there and to make optimal as does 9,200 as Jackson. But Jackson really has to finish in that first round, where Gravely's win condition, he just has to get those takedowns that he would be going for anyway. So he's got in some sense, like the longer the fight goes, the better chance. I don't say the better chance he has to make optimal, but he has outs if he doesn't finish them in the first or second round. Okay. So I think Gravely's definitely in play, but likewise, I don't think Gravely's like a lock. I don't think Montel Jackson's a lock. I think you want to get probably some 9K guys, but it's not like one guy of those two is a particular priority. Okay, moving on up, we have Nikoichi and Rodriguez. This is close to this really is close to a fight I want to kind of target. But not quite. The inside the distance prop, again, you look at that over 2.5 rounds is just about above average, which is fine. So I think that Nikoichi and Rodriguez, or Nikoichi and Rodriguez, I think it rates as kind of a nice secondary play. And I think that you'll find that when you build lineups, you're sometimes going to need the 200 that you get from moving down from, say, 9,200, Gravely to an 8,900, an 8,900. I want to get this pronunciation right, but I'm never going to. In Kuchi, what is he, 8,800? Yeah. So I think you'll find that savings is going to help you. So if you find that you're getting to Nikoichi and you just can't quite get up to like the 9,100, 9,200s, I don't think it's that bad. So he might end up being kind of sneaky here. And Rodriguez as a 7,400 dog, not the worst thing in the world either. Again, I like these two better, and we'll get to another one later, but I definitely think Rodriguez, in your 30th lineup or something like that, 20th lineup, certainly makes some sense. Now, this next one is the one where I think you're really just going to have to play. So you have an inside the distance prop where you have it basically pick 'em to be under 1.5 rounds. So it's the same type of deal as the whatchamacallit, as the Montel Jackson fight. Except if you want to play Buckley, he's only 9,100. So if he gets there in the first round, you're probably going to be optimal. And even if he gets there in the second round, he's got a good chance to be optimal. Whereas 9,500, it's a little more difficult. Now, the other thing is that he's not as big of a favorite as Montel Jackson. So I think that they're close. Again, I think that Buckley is definitely someone you'd play, but he's not someone you have to play. What's interesting is the possibility of playing the Arroyo or Arroyo side. He's got a little bit of a style tweak here, quirk, in that he does get his finishes with kicks, and Buckley did get finished in his last fight by someone who head kicked him. So there's going to be a lot of action. I think this does rate to finish really early. So Arroyo could get him, and Arroyo is under 7K. So you want to take a shot with him. I think he's a decent underdog that, it's probably going to lose. But I think this fight is definitely a key fight that you have to keep an eye on. So let's talk about this Tsarukyan-Giagos fight. So you have Tsarukyan, who is the highest priced fighter on the slate at 9,600. Now remember, to get there at 9,600, I mean, you really need to smash, okay? And when you look first at the inside the distance prop, you see it's really poor. I mean, it's basically favored to go to a decision. So how on earth can you play someone at 9,600 if it favors to go to a decision? First of all, he is a 8-1 favorite. And the reason why he's going to project very well is because of his takedown upside. And people will look and they will see that, for example, in his last fight, he did have 10 takedowns with 126 fantasy points, which that is going to be just fine. Okay. But the problem is that we as a community are very recency biased. And I do remember this fight, and I remember the lead into that fight and the content surrounding that fight. And the content surrounding that fight was such that they expected Tsarukyan to have a big style advantage over Frevola, that he was going to be able to take him down at will, and he did. But aside from that fight where he had 10 takedowns, I don't see any other fight where he flashed that type of upside. Now I've heard, that, look, these other fights were much harder. Okay. And Makhachev apparently is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and et cetera, et cetera. The fact of the matter is that at 9,600, you're not leaving yourself a lot of room for error with that type of analysis. You better be right that Tsarukyan can just, do what he wants with Giagos. And this would not be the first time that Giagos, I don't want to say surprised, but yeah, it would be outperformed. I remember Giagos's last fight. He was coming off the layoff, and he was a very hated 9,100. Like, nobody wanted to play him. He was pretty much almost everybody's fade. And, he was very rusty in the first round. I mean, as a matter of fact, I want to say that Soriano beat him in that first round. If not, it was really, really close. Because I know I faded Giagos. It was the first fight of the night, and I just needed Giagos to not finish him. And then he got there and he finished him in the second round. And he paid off 96 fantasy points. So I just don't know if I want to believe the hype about Sarukian just being able to just ragdoll this guy. For me, I'm probably going to fade him in my main lineup. If I had to pick, 9,100 guys, a $9,100 guy, I would probably go with either Buckley or Montel Jackson before Sarukian. I just think that, I don't know, just something just seems fishy about it. I don't know what else to say. I think that again, if you put your thumb over that last fight, he's just a guy, and he's a guy with a low inside the distance prop who's a decision maker, who doesn't knock anybody out. Only because he flashed those 10 takedowns in this last fight does he apparently warrant this $9,600 price. But I just have this feeling that it's bad. I don't know why. I just been around the block a little bit, and that's just the way I feel about it. The next $9,100 fight, well, we'll get to that in a second. We already talked about Mota, Mandy Baum, and Lipsky. Let's just confirm this. Yeah, inside the distance prop is poor, no great equity. Kutalaba against Clark. So this one looks very similar to this, the Jackson fight and the Buckley fight with respect to the inside distance prop. Extremely strong, like almost a pick 'em to be under 1.5 rounds. So this is a fight where you could probably target both fighters, because it's not as if Kutalaba is like this big 2-to-1 or higher favorite. It's only $1.40. So let's just make sure that. So the only difference is that Kutalaba wins by TKO is $1.05. So they really think that the only way that he wins by TKO. Clark, they do have some Clark winning by decisions, sort of. He's 650 to win by TKO. So maybe that's accurate. Maybe that you're either supposed to play Kutalaba or nobody in this fight. So maybe the inside the distance prop and the knockout equity doesn't exist with Clark. Compare that to, for example, to that other fight that I talked about, the Buckley fight. So Arroyo, I mean, like, he's going to go for it. So like if Buckley loses, like, it's not going to be by decision, where I think that if for whatever reason Kutalaba comes up empty, it might be by decision. The only thing I would say is that Devin Clark might have some takedown upside from what I've read. So I don't know what to do with this one. I know that I want to play the Kutalaba side. I'm not sure if I want to play the Clark side. So Kutalaba, you'll see he's another 9K guy that is in play, that if, I'm not going to be worried about the fact that I can't play all 4 of them. You know what I mean? Like, I'd love to play Buckley or Jackson or Kutalaba, for example, but I don't need to, if I'm missing one of them, it's not that big of a deal for me. And if I miss out on Sarukian, I really don't think that's a big deal at all. And finally, in the main event, the fact of the matter is this is an equity problem also. I mean, like, you have Ryan Spann, who's only $1.40 fit underdog, and he's being priced as at least a 2-to-1 underdog. I mean, he's being priced at 7,100 here or something like that. So, I mean, for me, I mean, this is the play. I would not want to play pretty much any of Anthony Smith here. I don't like his equity, his win equity. I don't particularly like his finishing upside either. If anything, I think Ryan Spann is more of the finisher in this fight than Anthony Smith. And it does have a pretty low inside the distance, a pretty decent inside the distance prop too. It's well above average. And Spann does have that 5-round upside, like, just in case. But I don't think that Smith at 9,100 rates to really pay off that price tag. It's got to really, for him to pay off 9,100, he's got to knock him out, which I don't think's I don't think that's his win condition. I think his win condition is just grinding it out and surviving, and then maybe taking over really late and maybe getting a 5th round, submission or something like that, 5th round KO, but maybe a decision. But I think that the GPP side of this fight is probably Spann. So I'm probably going to play a decent amount of spam in my lineups, Spann. So did I miss somebody? I think I did. Who is this? Oh, this is the out. Okay, this is the Altani. Let me just see something real quick. Did they replace him? I really hope not. Hang on. Is that just this guy's nickname, or do I have to do this whole thing over again? Oh, Alatang. Is that Alatang? Is that the same guy? Yeah, it's Alatang. All right. So I think that I kind of dealt with this card. I think I don't know. I don't necessarily think I gave you everything to win, but I think the analysis is pretty strong here. You know what I mean? Like I really like the equity in Harris. I like the equity in Mota. I like I do like all those 9100s, but I don't think you need them all. And I think that of those 9100s, I really don't have a problem fading the Sarukian. I think he's going to be owned as he should be. I mean, given his results, but it's a big meatball out there, 9600s, So I would probably go with the Buckleys and the Kudalabas for my preferred 9100s. And I want to give the Sarukian dude another look. Not Sarukian, this we already talked about Gravely, but I wanted the Njuku guy. I think that at 8,800, he might end up being the lowest owned of them all. I mean, he will be the lowest owned of them all. I mean, his inside the distance prop is a little worse, but not that much worse. So I think that if you shuffle those guys, take shots at those underdogs I kind of mentioned, I think that you can make a large slate look small. Hopefully that this is the last video I make of this, and there's not a lot of fights that are canceled. But aside from that, the only other thing I would reiterate is if you are going to play FanDuel, to concentrate on the opposite of the takedown guys. Like I would play, once again, whoever was fighting, I forget the names, but whoever was fighting Harris, like Kianzad, I would play him on FanDuel. Lopez, I would play him on FanDuel. Whoever Sarukian was playing, I might play him on FanDuel. Who knows? That's pretty much it. Good luck, everybody. And I think this is going to be a really, really exciting card.